My mother always said, "We do everything for our children equally." She said it so often it felt like a creed, a declaration she wanted us to believe even more than it was true. I used to believe her. I really did. Until the day I found the envelope. It was 3 weeks after my high school graduation. I hadn't had a party. Said I didn't want one when asked, though I really did. I hadn't received much in the way of congratulations either. Just a lukewarm, well done, from Dad, and a distracted hug from Mom while she stirred pasta sauce. No cake. No surprise. Not even a card. I told myself they were just stressed. Money had been tight, or so they claimed. The fridge was emptier than usual. Lights were being turned off faster. Dad had picked up an extra shift. I understood. But 3 weeks later, my sister Amber rolled up the driveway in a brand new white BMW 3 Series with a red bow on the hood and her name on the temporary tag. Amber, who had barely graduated herself the year before after nearly failing out. Amber, who had taken a gap year that turned into 12 months of partying, traveling to Coachella, and blowing through credit cards in my parents' names. I remember standing there in the living room, looking out the window, watching her step, out of the car in her designer heels and Gucci sunglasses, her arms outstretched like a goddess descending. "Surprise!" she squealed. Mom and Dad said I deserved something special for turning things around, and they all clapped like seals. I didn't. I just stood there. Something cold cracked inside my chest, but I smiled anyway. I always smiled. It was expected of me. That night, I found the envelope. I'd gone into the study to look for an old notebook. But what I found, tucked behind a stack of unpaid bills, was a manila envelope marked with my name. Inside were at least a dozen cards. Graduation cards, from my aunts, uncles, cousins, even one from Grandma, in her shaky handwriting, with a crisp $100 bill still inside. None of them had ever reached me. I sat on the floor with the cards spread around me like evidence at a crime scene. Every envelope had been sliced open, carefully. All the money was gone, all the congratulations unread. But it was the bank deposit receipt, dated 2 days before Amber's car was delivered, that broke me. $7,850. Deposited into Mom's personal account, labeled a grad fund. Amber, not me. I didn't cry that night. I didn't even tell anyone. Instead, I returned every card carefully to the envelope, resealed it with tape, and slid it beneath the false bottom in my dresser drawer. I made a promise to myself that night as I stared at the ceiling until dawn. One day, they would hear what I had to say, and I wouldn't whisper it in the corner of a kitchen while they stirred pasta sauce. They'd hear it loud and clear, with an audience. Time passed, but I didn't forget. I worked, I studied, I kept to myself. I got a part-time job at the bookstore downtown, the one that smelled like ink and old wood, and paid just enough to keep my head down and save. My parents thought I was working to buy new clothes or maybe a phone upgrade. But I wasn't. I was saving for an exit. I didn't know what form it would take yet. A dorm, a flight, a moment of clarity. But I knew I needed out. Amber, meanwhile, became the glittering center of the family solar system. My parents orbited her proudly. Everything was her. She took selfies with the BMW constantly, parking diagonally at gas stations just to get the full frame. She filmed herself grinding for her future, even though she mostly sat on her bed in pajamas and posted TikToks about skincare routines and how hard it was to be an empath. My father helped her set up a YouTube channel. My mother edited her thumbnails. And me? I took out the trash, drove the minivan to buy groceries, was asked to help Amber film her day-in-the-life vlogs, even though I was never allowed to appear in them. "Don't take it personally," she said once, waving me off. "The aesthetic's just cleaner without, background people. Background people." A few months later, I overheard something that solidified everything. It was late, past midnight, and I was coming downstairs for a glass of water when I heard my parents whispering in the kitchen. "She doesn't need a party," my mother was saying. "She never asked for one," Dad added. "We've already done enough." There was a pause, then the clink of wine glasses. "She'll understand. She's practical." "Exactly. She's not emotional like Amber." I froze on the stairs. 3 days later, Amber's graduation party invitations started arriving. Golden cursive on thick ivory cardstock. Venue, Magnolia Grove Winery. RSVP requested. And on the very last line, like an afterthought, hosted with "Love" by Mom and Dad. She was graduating from some online business certificate program she'd barely finished after a year of doing nothing. But apparently, that was cause for a party. A vineyard party, no less. Everyone got one. Cousins, neighbors, even the UPS driver, except me. I found the stack of extras in the den. I read the list. My name wasn't there. Not even as a +1. I didn't confront them. I didn't even show it hurt. I simply nodded when Amber mentioned it in passing. "Oh, it's just going to be really small," she said, sipping iced coffee. "Only people who actually matter, you know?" I smiled. "Of course." And then I went upstairs, closed my door, pulled out the envelope, and began planning. Because if I was going to be invisible, I'd make sure the first time they saw me again would be unforgettable. The irony was, the more they pushed me out of their little world, the more doors quietly opened in mine. I'd been working double shifts at the bookstore since May, and by July, my manager, a sharp-eyed, softly spoken woman named Kira, had taken a liking to me. Maybe she saw through my smile. Maybe she'd worn it once herself. She was the first person to ask me, "Are you okay?" and mean it. One afternoon, as we were shelving clearance hardcovers, she asked what I planned to do after summer. I shrugged. Take out a loan, try to transfer, figure things out. She nodded, thoughtful. You ever think about staying in town and working full-time? Maybe taking classes part-time? That conversation turned into a connection. That connection turned into a scholarship recommendation. And that recommendation landed me a full-ride spot in a hybrid university program, half online, half in person, and all covered, and not 1 cent of it from my parents. I didn't tell them. I didn't tell anyone. I let them believe I was floundering, that I'd missed the boat and was still figuring myself out. Invisibility, I realized, was a kind of superpower. The party was 2 weeks away when the final thread snapped. I was walking through the living room, folding laundry when Amber said it. So glad I didn't invite her, she smirked, scrolling through her phone. Her vibes are just too bitter. She'd bring down the whole thing. Mom laughed. Let her be. She's different. Always has been. She probably doesn't even care, Dad said from the recliner, sipping beer. She never really liked big events. That was when I knew. They didn't just exclude me. They thought I was okay with it. They thought I was too quiet, too soft to notice. but quiet doesn't mean clueless. And soft doesn't mean weak. I booked the dress first. Sleek black satin, floor length. Open back, not flashy, not desperate. Just powerful. I picked it up from a consignment boutique where the woman behind the counter winked at me and said, "Stepping on some necks, huh?" I smiled. Something like that. Then I reserved the car, not a BMW. A vintage black-on-black Jaguar, the kind that growled when it pulled into a gravel drive. I paid cash. It cost 3 paychecks, worth every cent. And lastly, I printed the letters. 3, to be exact. Each typed neatly, each in an envelope addressed in golden ink. One for Mom, one for Dad, one for Amber. I sealed them, tied them together with a velvet ribbon, and tucked them into my clutch. They'd find them by the end of the night. The day of the party arrived like a thunderstorm. Hot, electric, and heavy with something waiting to break. I didn't RSVP. I didn't need to. I already knew how I was getting in. One of my cousins, Amanda, had been feeling weird about the whole situation. She'd sent me a message a few nights before. "Hey, did you get an invite? I asked Aunt Karen, and she said you weren't comfortable with crowds." "That true?" I replied with a simple, "Not exactly, but thanks for asking." Her silence afterward said everything. But Amanda, God bless her, sent me a picture of the seating chart the night before the event. I found an empty table at the back with a no-show cancellation, and I planned accordingly. The drive to Magnolia Grove was long and winding, golden with late summer haze. The Jaguar purred like a panther beneath my hands. I wore my sunglasses, lipstick dark, hair pinned back low. No one at the valet desk blinked when I arrived. They just took my keys, handed me a ticket, and gestured toward the stone path that led through the archway. I could hear laughter, glasses clinking, the shimmer of strings from a live band, Amber's World. But not for long. The vineyard looked like a Pinterest board exploded. Golden fairy lights were strung from the trees in long looping arcs. Soft white tablecloths fluttered beneath the breeze. There was a photo wall decorated with faux ivy and a gold balloon sign that read, "Ambition with Amber." Of course. She was there in the center, laughing too loudly, posing too hard, moving through the crowd like a pageant queen who mistook attention for love. I didn't approach right away. I stood at the edge, watching, and no one noticed me. It was almost comical, really, how they didn't recognize me. Maybe it was the hair, the dress, the attitude. Maybe they hadn't really seen me in years. I was a shadow they'd trained themselves to ignore, until I no longer was. I waited until the speeches began. Amber's best friend took the mic first, gushing about how no one works harder than Amber, how she rose from the ashes like a phoenix. Ashes someone else cleaned up, I thought. Then came Mom, her voice thick with fake emotion. "We're just so proud of everything you've done. From the late nights to the tough decisions, you've earned this." Dad nodded along like a bobblehead, teary-eyed from 3 glasses of wine. Amber posed by the stage, glass raised, soaking it in. The applause rolled like a tide, and that's when I moved. I walked toward the stage. Slowly, silently. One of the waiters noticed me first, then a cousin, then Amanda, who half gasped, half smiled when she realized what was happening. And then Amber saw me. Her face dropped just slightly, confusion knitting her brow. and then she laughed like it was a joke. But I didn't stop walking. I stepped onto the small stone platform, took the mic gently from the stand, and faced them. My family. My so-called people. The audience I'd never been meant to have. "Hi," I said softly. "I won't take long." Amber blinked. "What are you—" "I just wanted to give a quick toast," I interrupted. "To my sister." A few people clapped out of habit. Others went quiet. "She's worked hard," I continued. "She's been supported, encouraged, celebrated. That's what families do, right?" I turned slightly toward Mom and Dad. "And sometimes they even take from one daughter to give to another." The silence was now absolute. I didn't come here for a fight. Just a little truth. Because I was never invited. Not to this party. Not to my own. Amber's jaw tightened. Mom stood, lips parting. "You told everyone I didn't want one. But what I didn't want was to be forgotten. Like I didn't matter. Like my achievements were just chores you were glad I was quiet about." I reached into my clutch and pulled out the ribboned stack of letters. These were meant for me. From family. Friends. People who love me. They were stolen. Just like the money inside them, I placed the bundle on the podium. And I know what that money bought. It's parked outside with a bow in the trunk. Gasps. A few murmurs. Someone cursed under their breath. "I don't need it back," I said clearly. "I've paid for my own future now. On my own terms. No fraud. No favors." Then I turned to Amber. "You said I'd bring down the vibe. And maybe I have. But the truth has a way of doing that, doesn't it?" I smiled, then stepped down. The silence behind me as I walked away felt like music, the kind that plays when the curtain finally falls. But this wasn't the end. It was just intermission. I didn't run. I walked, back down the stone steps, past stunned aunts and speechless cousins, across the gravel where people had been sipping champagne moments earlier. The night air was cool against my skin. The silence behind me stretching. Too thick for anyone to cut just yet. The Jaguar waited like a shadow at the edge of the parking circle, black as night and twice as quiet. But I wasn't gone yet. I stood by the driver's side, took a breath, and waited. 10 seconds. Then 20, right on cue. Footsteps. Fast ones. "Wait! Hey!" Amber's voice shrilled across the lot, heels crunching over gravel. "What the hell was that, you jealous freak?" I turned slowly. She stormed up, eyes blazing, one hand clutched, around her sequined clutch like it was a weapon. Her lip gloss shimmered under the lantern lights, but there was a crack in her composure, a twitch in her jaw, a tremble in her chin. "What did you think that would do?" she hissed. "You think humiliating Mom and Dad makes you some kind of martyr?" "No," I said calmly. "Just honest. You're pathetic. And yet, here you are, chasing me into the parking lot." That shut her up for a second. "I earned that car," she said. "They gave it to me because I deserve something after everything I went through." I stared at her, unblinking. "You mean the gap year you spent tanning in Malibu and ghosting credit card bills?" she faltered. "You don't know what they said about you," she snapped. "I know exactly what they said about me," I said, quietly. "And you repeated it." Then I opened the car door and slid the clutch across the front seat and let her glimpse what was inside. Photos, printouts, screenshots of bank receipts, scans of the cards from the envelope, side by side, with my grandma's handwriting and the withdrawal logs, a flash drive. She saw it. I made sure of that. You wouldn't, she breathed. You wouldn't ruin your own family's name. I didn't, I said. They did. I'm just showing the world what it already is. Her eyes widened. You're bluffing. I smiled. There's a reason I waited until after your speech to tell the truth. I wanted people to see you exactly as you wanted to be seen. That way, when the mask falls, they'll remember the real you. Her lips curled into a sneer. You're sick. No, I said. I'm done. And with that, I stepped into the car. The door closed with a soft click. A final sound. She was still standing there when I drove away, her silver heels now coated in vineyard dust, her cheeks blotched red under the fairy lights. That night, I uploaded the full PDF file to a secure drive, labeled it Amber Party, Truth, Unfiltered. Then I wrote an email. Subject, about last night. Recipients, the entire family. I didn't hit send, not yet. Not because I was unsure, but because I knew the moment I did, everything would change, and I wanted them to sit with the silence for just a little longer. The aftermath came in waves. The first was silence. Not a text, not a call, no fake, cheerful, good morning from Mom. No passive-aggressive scripture forwarded from Dad's Bible app. Amber didn't post anything either, which in itself was a loud, glittery red flag. The second wave came 3 days later. My inbox exploded. Cousin Mariah. Girl, what even happened? I had no idea. I'm so sorry. Uncle Raj, tell me this isn't true. Please. They said you misunderstood things. But this sounds deliberate. Even Aunt Denise, who once called me the quiet one with no ambition, sent a one-line email. If this is real, they have a lot to answer for. And the final wave? That came a full week later. Subject, family meeting, Saturday, 5 p.m. Your attendance is expected. Sent from Mom's email. Signed, Dad, expected. Like I was the one on trial. Saturday came fast. Too fast. But I didn't flinch. I wore jeans, a plain white tee, and the necklace Grandma had given me for graduation. The one Mom couldn't find when I asked about it. I'd discovered it shoved in the back of the downstairs junk drawer the week before. Still in the original box. I parked outside the house I grew up in. The one I used to believe was safe, warm, fair. The lights were already on. Shadows moved. Behind the curtains. The door opened before I knocked. Dad. He looked tired. Older than 2 weeks ago. Like the truth aged him. We didn't expect you to come, he said quietly. You invited me, I said. His eyes flicked down, then away. Right. Come in. They were all there. Mom, Amber, even Uncle Greg, who lived 2 towns over. Aunts, cousins, grandparents via FaceTime on an iPad perched against a flower vase. It wasn't a family meeting. It was a tribunal. Sit, Mom said. Her voice clipped. Not an invitation, a command. I sat. Amber sat across from me, arms crossed, eyes puffy. No eyeliner today. First time in years. Mom cleared her throat. We've been talking, and we think you owe this family an explanation. I blinked. I owed them? An explanation? I repeated. For what? For the drama, she said. For how you chose to handle this. Publicly. Vindictively. Vindictively. The word settled between us like a gavel. You stole from me, I said quietly. You lied. You opened my cards, took my graduation money, used it for Amber's car, and told everyone I didn't want to celebrate. We didn't. Steal, Dad started. You did, I said, my voice firmer now. And when I found out, you told yourselves I'd understand. That I was the practical one, the quiet one, the one who wouldn't fight back. Silence. Amber shifted, arms tightening. They didn't mean it like that. You just didn't need it as much as I did. I turned to her. I didn't need it? That's rich. Coming from someone who's never paid for her own lunch. You're jealous. I'm justified. Mom stood. Enough. You made your point. Now we'd like you to take down the file, before more people see it, before this becomes irreversible. I looked at her for a long, quiet moment. No, I said. You're destroying your own name. No, I repeated. You already did that. I'm just making sure people see the truth. You're making us look like monsters. If the shoe fits, I said, wear it. And then I stood. You had your meeting, I said. Now I'm having mine. Walked to the center of the room, reached into my bag, and pulled out 3 printed pages. One for Mom, one for Dad, one for Amber. Each one neatly outlined the bank transfers, the dates, the statements, the quotes I'd recorded, the timeline of deceit. I've already given a copy to a lawyer, I said. Not for court, not yet, just for safety, in case anything happens. To me, my file goes public, to everyone. Their faces paled, and before you think about guilt-tripping me into silence, know this: silence was your weapon, and now I'm immune to it. I left without another word. Behind me, chairs scraped. Voices rose. But I didn't look back. This time, they were the ones sitting in a silence they couldn't escape. If I had hoped for an apology, a real one, I didn't get it. What I got instead was a performance. 2 days after the meeting, Mom posted a family photo on Facebook. It was an old picture from years ago, back when we still had a Christmas tree in the corner of the living room, and Amber and I were both wearing matching red pajamas. The caption read, "No matter what storms come, family is everything." Sometimes people say things in pain they don't mean. We forgive. We move on. We stay united. There were over 200 likes in 20 minutes. Comments like, "Such grace. You raised your daughters so well. Ignore the drama queen. Stay blessed." And beneath them, one comment from someone who didn't get the memo. "Didn't y'all steal money from your other daughter? It was gone within the hour. Deleted, but not before I screenshot it." Then came Dad, with a LinkedIn post. Raising 2 daughters in this world isn't easy. You do your best. You make sacrifices. You love hard. Sometimes people misunderstand your silence as favoritism. But we move forward with love. Amber, of course, followed suit. A makeup-free selfie in soft lighting. Caption: "Just because I smile doesn't mean I haven't cried. I've been through a lot lately. Please respect my privacy while I heal. Mental health matters. Healing, I wanted to laugh, but it wasn't funny. It was calculated. They weren't apologizing. They were rebranding. I stayed quiet. Not because I had nothing to say, but because I had everything to do. I focused on school, work, my future, the real one I was building, brick by brick, without shortcuts or pity. I stopped returning calls, stopped explaining myself, the family group chat, muted, Mom's invitations to have coffee and chat, declined. Amber's 3-paragraph text that began with, "I'm in therapy now," and ended with, "You need help too?" Left on read. Let them tour the ashes. I was building elsewhere. But then something happened I didn't expect. Amanda, my cousin, reached out again, this time, with something different. "Hey, I know you probably don't want to talk, but..." I was at dinner with Aunt Denise, and she said something that didn't sit right. She said your parents are telling everyone you made it up for attention. Said you always felt unseen and were twisting things. She sent me a voice recording. I listened to it twice. And I didn't get angry. I got focused. That night, I logged into the drive. The file was still there, untouched. But I'd been holding something back, something stronger. Inside the old envelope, still hidden behind my dresser drawer's false bottom, was a letter. From Grandma. The one who passed away just 3 months after my graduation. Her handwriting was crooked, shaky, but unmistakable. And her message was simple. "I know they treat you like an afterthought, sweetheart, but I see you. You are everything they overlook. Strength, grace, silence, and all. Use this money for your dreams, not theirs." I took a photo of the letter, then I added it to the end of the file, and that's when I renamed it. From Amber Party, Truth Unfiltered, PDF, to I Was the Daughter, You Ignored, PDF, and I hit share, not to the whole family, just to select few. The ones who mattered, the ones who whispered, the ones who thought I wouldn't hear. It didn't go viral. It didn't need to. But by the next morning, 3 more cousins texted me. 2 old friends messaged me privately. And 1 aunt, the only one who'd believed me from the start, sent a simple heart emoji. It wasn't a victory parade. It was better. It was a start. It was late October when the letter came. Real paper. No return address. Just my name in slanted cursive. At first I thought it was junk, until I opened it and saw the notary stamp. Inside was a letter from Grandma's lawyer. Apparently before she passed, she had updated her private trust. Quietly, without informing anyone but her estate planner. And guess whose name was on the deed to her lake house? Mine. Just mine. It wasn't a mansion. It wasn't even in the city. But it was hers. And now, it was mine. A 2-bedroom cedar cabin on a quiet stretch of lake an hour from anywhere. It smelled like pine and stories. Like the kind of place people never thought I'd belong to. I cried when I stepped inside for the first time. Not because of the wood beams or the fireplace or the untouched books still on her shelf, but because for the first time in my life, something had been left for me, not by mistake, not by guilt, but on purpose. Word got around fast. Within a week, Mom called. "Sweetheart, we heard about the house." That's such a surprise. Grandma never said anything. "No," I said. She wouldn't have. There was a pause. "Well, your father and I were talking. Maybe we could all go together, clean it up a bit, Make it into a family rental. No, I said again. It's not a we thing. It never was. You don't have to be like this, I smiled to myself. Neither did you. Amber texted the next day. I guess congrats are in order. Didn't know Grandma liked you that much, LOL. I didn't respond. Sometimes silence is louder than rage. That winter, I moved into the house. Transferred schools and took classes online. I worked remote hours. I spent weekends painting the porch, planting lavender, repairing the dock. One day, I stood on the back deck in the cold breeze, wrapped in Grandma's old shawl, and thought about what it meant to heal without permission. I had built something now, not out of spite, but out of truth. They never apologized. Not really. They performed guilt. They posted guilt. They marketed guilt. But I didn't need their remorse to move on, because the best revenge was not showing them what they lost. It was showing myself what I could become when they stopped being in the way. I was the daughter they ignored. But now, I'm the woman they can't reach.